السلام عليكم. بسم الله والحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي. Today we're doing Surat Abasa and the countdown begins. We got 3 more surahs, Abasa, Nazi'at and Naba. And bittersweet, but alhamdulillah, I'm so grateful that we're coming to the end of the journey. All right, so we're going to go ahead and listen to the surah. This is a Mekki surah, and the purpose of revelation was an incident that happened where the Prophet ﷺ was, he saw a group of the elites of the Quraysh, and he was trying to invite them to Islam. And Abdullah ibn Maktoum, a blind man who was from the poor of like the Quraysh, and someone who was already Muslim came to the Prophet ﷺ and tried to get his attention while his attention is being, directed towards somebody else. And the Prophet ﷺ, like he wanted to ask a question, and the Prophet ﷺ looked at him, frowned, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala points that out in a way where he is, is there a softer word for scolding? Like he's basically telling the Prophet ﷺ, this is not befitting. Abasa wa tawalla, he frowned and he turned away. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we'll go into the rest of the surah. But let's go ahead and listen to the surah, inshallah. Yeah, it's right here.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم.
عبس وتولى أن جاءه الأعمى وما يدريك لعله يزكى أو يذكر فتنفعه الذكرى أما من استغنى فأنت له تصدى وما عليك ألا يزكى وأما من جاءك يسعى وهو يخشى فأنت عنه تلهى كلا إنها تذكرة فمن شاء ذكره في صحف مكرمة مرفوعة مطهرة بأيدي سفرة كرام بررة قتل الإنسان ما أكفره من أي شيء خلقه من نطفة خلقه فقدره ثم السبيل يسره ثم أماته فأقبره ثم إذا شاء أنشره كلا لما يقض ما أمره فلينظر الإنسان إلى طعامه أنا صببنا الماء صبا ثم شققنا الأرض شقا فأنبتنا فيها حبا وعنبا وقضبا وزيتونا ونخلا وحدائق غلبا وفاكهة وأبا متاعا لكم ولأنعامكم فإذا جاءت الصاخة يوم يفر المرء من أخيه وأمه وأبيه وصاحبته وبنيه لكل امرئ منهم يومئذ شأن يغنيه وجوه يومئذ مسفرة ضاحكة مستبشرة ووجوه يومئذ عليها غبرة ترهقها قترة أولئك هم الكفرة الفجرة.
Okay, so some of the objectives of the surah is that we already talked about the purpose of revelation.
Surah
Okay, we already talked about the purpose of revelation, but we're going to emphasize today, one of the lessons that we're going to be talking about is, although, yes, this is one time where the Prophet ﷺ is being scolded for how he interacted with an individual, what we know overall about the Prophet ﷺ is his good manners, his excellence in the way he interacts with people. This is what made him an exceptional person, an exceptional leader, an exceptional prophet. وَإِنَّكَ عَلَى خُلُقٍ عَظِيمٍ. Indeed, you are upon a great character and way of behavior. And so we're going to talk, we're going to spend time with that today. Examples of the Prophet ﷺ's character and behavior, and how we can, be inspired by that, and what lessons we can take from that. The purity of the Quran, and it being a reminder what does Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala intend, creation and the reality of human beings, the divine food supply and its purpose. This is a long surah, so we divided it into different chunks, and we're going to look at the theme, like different themes as chunks, inshallah. Who will have your loyalty on the day of judgment, and what will, how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about the people of Jannah and the people of hellfire. This time, it's an emphasis on their faces, what their faces look like. So we're going to be talking about that. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Abasa wa tawalla, he frowned and he turned away, and ja'ahu al-a'ma, when the blind came to him, because the blind man that came to him. وَمَا يُدْرِيكَ لَعَلَّهُ يَزَّكَّى. And what makes you know, O Muhammad? How do you know? Maybe he's trying to seek further purification. Maybe this person is trying to purify themselves even more. They are actually seeking it. وَمَا يُدْرِيكَ لَعَلَّهُ يَزَّكَّى. Perhaps he's trying to purify themselves. أَوْ يَذَّكَّرُ فَتَنْفَعَهُ الذِّكْرَى. Or he's coming here to you for a reminder, and then that reminder will benefit him. And in essence, O Muhammad, this is your job, is to do this, and so this would have been better for you to attempt to. أَمَّا مَنِ اسْتَغْنَى. As for the one who is acting like they're not in need, they're self-sufficient, or they're not in need, they feel like, I don't need this, فأنت له تصدى. Then for that person, you are tasadda. Like tasadda is like you're standing in their way. You're standing in their way. You're not letting them go, because you want them to hear the message. You want them to listen to the message. You want them to heed it. You want them to take it. You want them to embrace it. Okay? وَمَا عَلَيْكَ أَلَّا يَزَّكَّى. And what will happen to you? Like what sin or what difficulty or what will happen to you if that person la yazakka and la yazakka, if they do not purify themselves, right? With one person, their purification has a direct benefit for you. You're going to be rewarded for it. This person, their lack of interest in purification will have no impact on you. وَأَمَّا مَنْ جَاءَكَ يَسْعَى. As for the one that came to you, yas'a, like running or walking towards you, seeking you, وَهُوَ يَخْشَى, while they're in a state of fear, فَأَنْتَ عَنْهُ تَلَهَّى. Then you are inattentive. You are not paying attention to them. You are not giving them your complete attention and dedication to deliver the message that you want. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is always watching us. Obviously, like here, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he only frowned. He only frowned. Like frowning is a physical expression, right? It's a physical expression of it's not even like, he didn't say what, like, what do you want? He didn't say anything with his words, right? And subhanallah, he did that And the man he's speaking with is a blind man. So he wouldn't even have seen it. But Allah highlights it. And what is the wisdom behind it? One, to teach us that Allah is watching. Be mindful of how you react to those around you. Be mindful of how you respond to people that are maybe in a weaker situation to you, or people who are seeking you for advice, for information, for whatever. Like, I always wonder, one of my teachers, she's always available, mashallah, when you call her or you text her. She might take a little bit of time to respond, but she will always respond. And most times she's very quick to respond. And I always wonder, like, this is somebody who's made themselves available for all the questions that they get. Because people know she has ilm, people are stuck. They will call her, like, sometimes, like, odd times of the day, yet she's still available to answer, So realizing that if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had given you something where others are seeking, then others will come to you. This is this is what people will do. They see you excel in something that they want, they will come to you. So be receiving, and be receiving in an open manner, in a generous way. We already talked about tasadda. Don't be, so when it comes to delivering the message of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, there's the attitude that a Muslim should have. I'm going to show this message in the best way possible, but I'm not going to chase a person. I'm not going to be like chase a person as if their accepting the message has a direct benefit to me. Yes, I get the reward, but at the end of the day, the reward, like the conversion, comes from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right? You deliver the message, you show the message. And here the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, you can understand where he's coming from. He wants the elites of the Quraysh to accept the message so that Islam can spread. Once the elite accepts something, that thing spreads, right? And the people accept it. And so he wanted to appeal to them. But here Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying, وَمَا عَلَيْكَ أَلَّا يَزَّكَّى. Like, it's not what will happen to you if they don't accept. Nothing. So walk away. Don't deliver the message in such a way where you come across, they come across as they have the upper hand, or that you're begging. That's not the purpose of this deen. That's not the purpose or one of the ways to deliver this message. We're not begging others. We are eager. We care about their well-being. Yes. So that's why we excel in the way we do it. We do it with humility. We do it with humbleness. We do it with compassion, but we don't do it with desperation, right? We don't do it with desperation. And subhanAllah, the results, many times, forgive me, I'm very dry. My throat is very dry today. Many times we worry about the results. Like, we equate our efforts and the success of what we're doing with the results that we have. The Prophet ﷺ tells us that on the Day of Judgment, there will be prophets who will be resurrected and they will have 0 followers. Right? They will have 0 followers. 0. Yeah. 0. 0 followers. Some will have 1 or 2. Some will have a small crowd. Some will have a huge crowd. Okay? Now, as human nature is, when we care about something, we care about our work, we want to see the results. However, if we're truly sincere to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the results are not going to be what we worry about. We're going to fight that desire to see results, and we're going to focus on excelling what we do. Okay, we're going to focus on excelling in how we do what we are doing, having the best of manners, having the best of technology, having the best means to deliver that message. But I'm not going to worry about results, Why? Because the results are up to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the results sometimes come after you die. You know, the results sometimes come after you die. There's a story of an imam. His name is Imam Malik. It's not the famous Imam Malik that we know. He wrote a book called Ulfiyat al-Imam Malik. He used to sit in the market and try to teach people that book, and nobody would come to him. And when he died, his book became famous that today it's one of the first books that students of knowledge study, you know, when they're studying Arabic, when they're studying Arabic grammar. So he never knew that. Like in his time of, like in his lifetime, nobody wanted it. So he could easily think, nobody is going to benefit. What's the point of me doing this? I don't see likes on my thing. I'm not going to do it. I don't see people following my video, so I'm not going to do it. I don't see people coming to the halaqah, so except for those 2 people, so I'm just going to cancel it. And these are like, subhanAllah, direct thoughts of Khartoum, because this is the type of work that I do. But asking yourself, what is it that you do, and where do you expect results? Where do you expect results? You know, sometimes we make dua and we expect to see the result, the answer of the dua. The result of the dua is that you've made the dua and Allah has rewarded you for it. To see the outcome, like, or the answer of the dua, that's not the result. So sometimes we get disheartened and we feel like, you know what, I made dua for this, I made dua for this, I didn't get it. So the result of my dua, I haven't reached the results of it. You've already reached the results of the dua when you made the dua, because the point was to connect with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You know, we already talked about this. Okay, we'll come back to these. We'll just go over the whole surah and then come back to the manners of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Okay, the reality of the Quran. Now, we said basically what I skipped, you guys, is the slides where we're going to be spending time talking about the manners and the character of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. This is like one of my favorite sections, if you would call it, like of the course, because let's do it right now, actually. You know, here the Prophet ﷺ is being scolded, but we have the best example when it comes to how did the Prophet ﷺ interact with others, right? The Prophet ﷺ was known for having such a character and manners where people fell in love with him. People fell in love with him and they were eager to please him. And this was like, subhanAllah, a person who is here to deliver the message of Islam has to have this character. It's like one of the ways that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protected the delivery of the message, right? One of the ways where Allah protected the delivery of the message so that it can be successful is giving Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam this nature of interacting with other beings. So what some of the ways is that he was uplifting towards people. He never put them down. And when they put themselves down, he would uplift them. Okay, he was somebody who cared about how confident you felt. There's a Sahabi by the name of Zahir. And Zahir was a companion of the Prophet ﷺ that the Prophet ﷺ used to love. One day he saw him in the market, he hugged him from the back, and he acted like, you know, he was going to sell him. And so when Zahir figured out this was the Prophet, he tried to, like, you know, rub himself against the Prophet just to get that barakah. And then he said, Ya Rasulullah, you will not, this is not going to be a good sale. Like, you're not going to make anything from me. I'm a cheap person. So then the Prophet ﷺ said to him, وَلَكِنَّ عِنْدَ اللَّهِ أَنْتَ غَالِي. However, with Allah, you are very expensive. You're very worthy. So many of us walk around with feelings of worthy, lack of self-worth. You know, we think we're not good at anything. We don't highlight our strengths. We highlight our weaknesses. We don't highlight our successes. We highlight our struggles and our challenges and our failures. And so we think we walk around with our head down, our shoulders bent like this, feeling like that. Whereas, you know, if we were to really appreciate ourselves for who we are, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَاصْطَنَعْتُكَ لِنَفْسِي, I have created you for myself. And Allah, whatever He's created, there's great value in it. It just takes a moment for you to realize it, to sit down and appreciate it. And so the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam did that for Zahir. He did it for the Bedouin, and I can't remember who the Bedouin was. Let me see if I have notes. Who's the Bedouin Khartoum? You know, I'm thinking of the only Bedouin I'm thinking of is the Bedouin that peed in the corner of the masjid, inside the masjid. And I'm thinking I put that in there because people wanted to belittle him for his lack of knowledge, but the Prophet ﷺ honored him and respected him by sharing, by teaching him. It was a teachable moment. It wasn't a moment of scolding and yelling and screaming and punishing a person. It was a moment of teaching. And subhanAllah, you know what's so interesting? When it comes to children, and they make a lot of mistakes, you know, and sometimes we get annoyed and we think this child is doing this intentionally. But if we step back and say, this is a teachable moment, I'm going to be gentle, I'm going to be calm, and I'm going to say, it is not okay, and with a stern voice, with a stern attitude, but also gentle. You know, also gentle, not in a way where we're yelling at them or screaming at them or showing them that they should have known better. You know what that attitude that I'm talking about? So subhanAllah, if we do that with children, they learn more, and the next time they will not repeat that same mistake. And this is how the Prophet ﷺ used to also deal with Anas ibn Malik, because he was a child when he was with the Prophet. Anas says, the Prophet ﷺ never yelled at me, never scolded me, never said to me, why didn't you do this and why didn't you do that? Never said oof to me. He just basically, but he would remind him. We would see that he would have phrases, and like he would get down to his level. Subhanallah, like this way that we're taught today, get down to the eye level of the child. The Prophet ﷺ would get down to the level of Anas, and he would say to him, like, where is what I asked you to do? You know, what are you doing? Where is what I asked you to do? Which is just a phrase, right? Why is that? How is that connected to uplifting? Subhanallah, that when we yell, we're constantly yell at people, we're hurting their ego, we're hurting their confidence, you know, and we're not supposed to do that. We're supposed to be uplifting to people. We're supposed to be respecting them, okay? He met people with enthusiasm, excitement, and openness. Amr ibn al-As, who became a Muslim later in the life of the Prophet ﷺ, he thought that even though he was newcomer to Islam, that the Prophet ﷺ loved him the most. Right? And this is because every time he saw him, we know that the Prophet ﷺ was always smiling, was enthusiastic, was excited, and you know, like he just showed. I put things in here and I can't remember what I was referencing. I can't believe this. Anyways, so this is how he interacted with Amr ibn al-As. He acknowledged the strengths and talents of people. Abu Musa al-Ash'ari was one time reciting the Quran, and the Prophet ﷺ said to him, لو رأيتني وأنا أستمع لقراءتك البارحة. If you saw me listening to you, O Musa, Abu Musa, لقد أوتيت مزمارا من مزامير آل داود. You have been given one of the, like, basically the voices, the different tones of Dawood, Ali Dawood, the family of Dawood. Dawood alayhi salam was known for having such a beautiful voice that when he recited, the mountains and the birds would recite with him. How beautiful was that? You know, the mountains and the birds would recite with him, and Abu Musa had that recitation. So the Prophet ﷺ tells him, if you only saw me, how much I was enjoying your recitation. Like, that was beautiful, Abu Musa. How do you think that impacts Abu Musa and his recitation? I know my son was one day, like, his teacher said to him, you have a beautiful voice, and he was just like smiling, like I've never seen him smile. He was so proud, and I was so happy that he had a teacher that would make him feel like that about his connection with the Quran, you know? So subhanAllah, like, never belittle a kind word and praise that you give a person. He welcomed diversity in people. He didn't expect everyone to do the same thing. Hassan ibn Thabit was someone who was a poet, but not only that, Hassan ibn Thabit was also, he wasn't, what is the word? What is the right, proper way to be respectful to a Sahabi? He didn't have it in him to be in a battlefield, okay? He was soft. He was not he was soft to the point where he couldn't join the battles, okay, and he would stay behind basically. And so I guess some people, they just have that, that's that he didn't make him feel bad about it. He just allowed him to be who he was. And he was a poet, so the Prophet ﷺ used to love hearing his poetry. He would ask him to recite poetry in the masjid of the Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam. There was an incident where Abu Umar radiallahu anhu, he told him to stop reciting poetry in the masjid later when Umar was a Khalifa. And basically Hassan ibn Thabit said to him, I used to recite this when someone better than you was here, like meaning the Prophet ﷺ was here, and I used to recite poetry, and he would never tell me to stop. So I'm not going to stop. And poetry is a form of art, right? And I remember saying this to one of my students, my teen students, and one of them, she wrote in her journal, or she expressed to me that she loved drawing. You know, she's always loved drawing, and she was really good at it. But her parents would tell her, don't do it, or there is no use in it. You're never going to make money out of it. So don't spend your time doing something you love, since you're not going to make money out of it. Let it go, right? Spend your time in something else. And for her, she said, it makes me feel good that the Prophet ﷺ validated his art. I wish someone validated my art. You know, I wish someone acknowledged that I loved doing this, and it didn't matter how much money I was making out of it, and it didn't matter that, or that potentially I could one day. You know, why are we limiting, right? Why are we limiting a person? So realizing that the Prophet ﷺ, this is how he interacted with others, admitting the good nature of people regardless of their faith. So this was an incident regardless of their sin. The Prophet ﷺ, when that woman that committed adultery, she was finally put to the had, like she was stoned to death. Some, like, her blood reached Khalid ibn Walid, and Khalid ibn Walid was disgusted by it. So the Prophet ﷺ said, don't do that, because this woman, she repented in such a way, if her repentance was to be it would have filled the Mount of Uhud, or it would have been sufficient for everybody that was in this town. You know, it would have been sufficient for everybody in this town. Highlighting, respect this person, even though they had done something that is a sin. We don't belittle them. We don't disrespect them. You know, and wallahi, you guys, it makes me wonder, how do we interact with people who commit sins? Somebody reached out to me recently about she works at a center to work with youth from East Africa who have substance abuse and drug and alcohol abuse, right? And she said to me, can you come and do a workshop? And but then one of the things that she expressed was how they are treated really horribly. They're treated like they're not good at anything. They're treated like they're there's no good in them. And it was so sad. It's the reality of how we treat people that we feel like have committed certain sins, and now the sin maybe overpowered them. Well, could they not have a return? Aren't they still human? Aren't they still worthy of respect? Aren't they still worthy of your good treatment? If you treated them well, imagine what could have happened to them, So not letting shaitan ruin relationships. This is another point where the Prophet ﷺ understands he's the Prophet. He knows, he's of a certain level of piety, that he's not going to be falling into sin, right? But one day he's standing with his wife, and it was nighttime, and two companions came by, and when they saw the Prophet standing with a woman that they couldn't recognize, they don't know this is his wife, they walked a little bit further away just to give the Prophet ﷺ privacy, right? They're doing it out of good intention. The Prophet ﷺ calls them and says, this is my wife, Sophia. I think it was Sophia or Maimuna, I'm not sure. And then they said, Ya Rasulullah, we're not going to doubt you. And he said that shaitan runs in the son of Adam, majra dam, like he runs where basically your blood vessels go. Okay, why is he doing that? He understands that there is human thoughts, and then there is the thoughts that shaitan instigates, right? And he doesn't want to leave room for that, so he makes it open and clear, like this is what I'm doing, just so you know, even though he doesn't need to, but he does it out of protection for their thoughts and protection for them from the whispers of shaitan. He listened to people attentively. Let me see, the man from Dimam. Basically, he earns Jannah if he's truthful. This man, subhanAllah, he came to the Prophet ﷺ and he said to him, Ya Muhammad, and this is a very long hadith and I don't have it memorized, but basically this man said to the Prophet, by the one who has created the seven heavens and the earth, and like who's done this, who's done that, like a very long description of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Do you say that Allah has sent you and told you that we need to pray 5 times, or that we need to say La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah? And he says yes. The Prophet ﷺ responds with a yes, and then he goes and he says something really long. I wish I put that in my notes. I'm really sorry, you guys. But basically, he shares this long thing, and then he says, by that person, by Allah, like by Allah who has done this and done this and done this and done this and done that, did he send you and tell you for us to do this? And then he does this for all the 5 pillars of Islam. Okay? And then the Prophet ﷺ says yes to each one of them. And during the whole hadith, the only thing that the Prophet ﷺ is saying yes, and listening attentively to this person. He never once says to him, I get the point. Yes, Allah said it. He never once says that. But he listens attentively the whole time, even though it's all repetitive. He could get the pattern, but he doesn't do that. He listens, and he listens attentively until the person is done, and then he says yes. So subhanAllah, one thing that my mentor once said to me, I remember he said that we've lost the art of being present with people. We've lost the art of being present with people. And so when we're buying coffee and we say, how are you, to the teller, we're not even looking them in the eye. We're not exchanging short conversation that might be meaningful. How was your day? Or looking them in the eye, or being still and showing that we actually care. I asked a question about how your day is going, and I actually care about the response. We don't do that. We've lost that art. I remember one time, I'll share, this is personal, but it's relevant to this. I was at the masjid one day, and this sister who, she had a stroke. So she had a hard time speaking. And when she spoke, it was difficult to understand her, and it was difficult to carry a conversation with her. She stopped me in the masjid, and my husband was waiting downstairs, and she started to talk to me. And when she starts to talk to me, it's a long conversation, like it's long. It doesn't stop. Like it's really long. And a part of me was really wanting to just go and interrupt her and say, sister, I have to go. But then I was like, Kulthum, be patient. The Prophet ﷺ I think it was near the time where I did the surah maybe. And this is why it was in my mind, or what was in my mind is how the Prophet ﷺ would give people his undivided attention and look them in the eye when he's talking, like look them in the face when he's talking to them, and not turn away and talk to them, but no, like be completely attentive with his physical body as well. And so I just stood there and I listened and I listened and I listened, and wallahi, like I'm not lying to you guys, it took a lot for me internally to be, it was like a moment of jihad basically, but it was worth it, because subhanAllah, like I didn't know it was worth it until months later when I went into that masjid, years later actually, I went into that masjid, and that I was really sick, and that sister saw me, and she came to me and she made dua for me, like there's Like she made dua for me, and she was so eager to know what she could do to help, you know? And I remember thinking, like, that day when this woman needed to just talk to somebody, I'm so grateful Allah pushed me to fight myself and be attentive with her. I hope this makes sense. And when she did that, like when I couldn't physically respond, like I was so sick that I couldn't talk properly, you know, I couldn't even answer her questions. And so it felt like I was in that same place that she was in years before. Does that make sense? What goes around comes around. What goes around comes around. So we need to be mindful in how we interact with others and how we treat them. And subhanAllah, the Prophet ﷺ set an example that is this high. And we might be here, but that are we challenging ourselves and over, like, recognizing some of how we are limited, how are we mindful of our shortcomings, you know, and actively working towards them. The most beautiful story is how the Prophet ﷺ was supportive to others when he saw them struggling. Jabir ibn Abdullah was a young companion. He was very young and he was very poor. His father died. He left a lot of siblings, and so he married a woman. And he married this woman out of, you know, like, so that she could support him with his siblings that he is now responsible for. And he had one camel, and through this camel is how he earned his living. Right? And the Prophet ﷺ tried to buy the camel from him that he was trying to make a living out of. The one camel that he was trying to make a living out of, the Prophet ﷺ wanted to buy it from him. And so Jabir ibn Abdullah couldn't find it in him to say no to the Prophet. He tried to give it for free. He tried to sell it to him for cheap. Yet the Prophet ﷺ kept on offering him a higher price, even though he's the buyer. The buyer was giving the higher price, and the seller was saying, like, oh no, that's a lot, you know. But the Prophet ﷺ offered him a lot of money for it. And when he came and he brought the camel to him, and the Prophet ﷺ gave him his money, the Prophet ﷺ said to him, keep your camel. Like, it was basically, he bought the camel. He didn't want to humiliate him and give him money as sadaqah. He did it in such a way where he made him believe that he was going to buy a camel from him. He gave him the money, and you know, that was just kind of like, let me protect your honor for you. Let me protect your dignity for you. Nobody likes to be the receiving hand. Nobody enjoys that, you know. And so this is how he went about it. The Prophet ﷺ, in his manners when it comes to advising others. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the Quran, he tells us, وَدْعُ إِلَى سَبِيلِ رَبِّكَ بِالْحِكْمَةِ وَالْمَوْعِظَةِ الْحَسَنَةِ. Call to the way of Allah with wisdom, like wisdom meaning, say the right thing, the right time, the right circumstances, the right words. Be meticulous in how you choose, how you go about everything. Like, use wisdom. Use complete wisdom. Right? Sometimes something could be right, but it's not the right time. Or it could be the right time, but it's not the right words. Or it could be the right everything, but there is a reason why we should just leave it. We shouldn't say it right now, you know? I can give you a million of examples, but I won't. But you get the point. The Prophet ﷺ, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, بِالْحِكْمَةِ وَالْمَوْعِظَةِ الْحَسَنَةِ, by good advice, like advice that is kind, that is gentle. So the Prophet ﷺ, when he's advising others, how would he do it? He would teach us how to do it, right? And so there was a companion by the name of Abdullah ibn Umar. He's the brother of basically the son of Umar al-Khattab, and his wife is the wife of his sister is the wife of the Prophet ﷺ, Hafsa. So one day, Hafsa tells the Prophet ﷺ about a good dream that Abdullah ibn Umar had. So the Prophet ﷺ wants to give Abdullah this advice. He said, Abdullah is a righteous man if only he stood up at night, if only he did qiyam al-layl. He's a righteous man if only he could add this thing, right? And Abdullah ibn Umar, he says when he heard that, he had never left qiyam al-layl, that it became a habit for him. That he would establish, he established it and never left it again. Another one is that he was truthful about the reality when Abu Dharr radiallahu anhu was a companion who's known for his wisdom, who's known for his piety, yet the Prophet ﷺ recognized in him that he was not fit for leadership. So he said to him, "Oh Abu Dharr, you are weak, and this is a trust. Leadership is an amana. Okay, and on the day of judgment, it will be humiliating and cause of remorse, except for the one who gives it its complete right." What was Abu Dharr's weakness? Allah Ta'ala a'lam, right? It's that something the Prophet ﷺ recognized. The Prophet ﷺ recognized a weakness in him, that he wasn't fit to fulfill certain responsibilities. So he's telling him, do not take leadership. Do not take any role of leadership. Sometimes a role of leadership is given to you and a responsibility is given to you and you have no choice but to fulfill it, right? I feel like this is a hadith that when the Prophet ﷺ says, this is a good reminder for us, that we will be asked, that we will be humiliated if we don't fulfill it, and that it's a call, it could be a place of regret for us, so that we need to be mindful in how we interact with it, how we handle it. He was not self-righteous. Amr ibn al-As was doing tayammum instead of a shower to purify himself. So there was an incident where Amr ibn al-As came to the Prophet, like people complained and they said, Amr ibn al-As led us in salah, and he made tayammum. He did not make, I'm going to stop because I'm not sure I remember the exact story. I'm going to stop on that one. But basically, yeah, I think I remember it, but I'm not exactly sure and I don't want to make something up. So the manners of the Prophet ﷺ when it comes to the correcting of the mistakes of the people. Now, even when it comes, like, this is a question that comes up, subhanAllah, this past week somebody was asking about that. When we are trying to do the right thing, others around us, especially closest to us, our family and our close friends, they're going to want to object. Right? And so how do we go about advising people when they're making mistakes, when they're not praying, when they're not doing this, when they're not doing that? So there is different levels, right? Obviously, like how did the Prophet himself do it? When a person makes a mistake, the Prophet, if they had a personal effect or the repercussion of it was small, the Prophet ﷺ was gentle and kind. But when the mistake was big and it had a community impact and society effect, then the Prophet ﷺ was stern and he was angry, and he showed that, like, no, we're going to follow the full, like there is no forgiveness here. Some of the examples is the Bedouin that we said was urinating in the masjid. The Prophet ﷺ took him to the side, talked to him gently. The man who prayed incorrectly, the Prophet ﷺ kept on telling him, go back and pray, go back and pray. And then the Prophet ﷺ gently taught him, because this had a personal impact, right? Personal thing. It was a personal thing, but it fixed all of our prayers, obviously. And then there's the other side, mistakes that have community or society effect. Example is when Umar al-Khattab radiallahu anhu was reading the Torah. The Prophet ﷺ got angry with him and he said to him, like, are you in doubt of what I have in the Quran? Or do you feel like there is anything else missing? Like, leave this book, you don't need to read it. Mu'adh bin Jabal would recite like Surat al-Baqarah while leading people in salah, and this was too long for them, so people would end up leaving their salah. So the Prophet ﷺ got angry with him, and he said to him, are you causing fitna, ya Mu'adh? Are you causing people such difficulty that now, like, we have a problem, that people are not completing their salah in the masjid? So like, your action impacts the community. So I'm going to be upset with you. I'm not going to be gentle with you. And another thing is, like, these people that he's getting upset with, there are people who are like strong in their iman. Like Umar al-Khattab, Mu'adh ibn Jabal. This other one is Usama ibn Zayd, when he killed someone in the battle who was saying La ilaha illallah. And he said to him, like, did you open his heart and look if he was truthful? Because Usama ibn Zayd said, this man only said La ilaha illallah, so I don't kill him. And the Prophet ﷺ got so angry, like, how could you kill someone who's saying La ilaha illallah? Usama ibn Zayd, he said, I wish that I was not a Muslim and that I had just accepted Islam right now, so that I know that would be forgiven for me. Like that's how remorseful he was about that situation. Also, the woman who stole, who was a rich woman, and she stole, and the had was that her hand would be cut off. They sent Zayd ibn Thabit because they knew how much the Prophet ﷺ loved him, and he said, like, "Afi hadd min hududillah, are you trying to seek? Are you asking for forgiveness in something Allah has obligated?" Like, he got so angry. He says, "Wallahi, if Fatima, the daughter of Muhammad, did it, I would have cut her hand." And he also said that the reason why the nations before you were disgraced, or they were destroyed, is because when the rich and the affluent and the elite did something, they would let it go. But when the weak did something wrong, then they would put that person through the punishment. You know, perfect example of what's happening in our society today when it comes to the prison system, and who actually goes to jail, and who actually does time. You know, if you're rich and you can afford if you're white and you can afford a good lawyer, you get away with so much. If you have money and you can get yourself a good lawyer, you can get away with so much. SubhanAllah. So this is like complete injustice, right? Okay, let me see here. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, okay, so we'll continue with the rest of the surah. You guys, if you have any questions or thoughts, go ahead and type them in, inshallah. I'll take a break for them. So what is the reality of the Quran? So there's, like, here Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala speaks about the Quran itself. What is the Quran, right? What is these words that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, okay, so let me go back to where we stopped. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala was scolding him and telling him about the person, you know, here you are chasing this person, here's another person chasing you, right? And at the end of the day, it's about tazkiyah, and it's about the words of Allah, right? So then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, these words that you want people to accept, what are they? He describes them. Kalla innaha tazkira. No, rather, this is a lesson, this is a reminder. فَمَنْ شَاءَ ذَكَرَ. So whomever so wishes will remember it. They will benefit from it. ذَكَرَ also means to implement it, to take it, to live it, to live it and remember it and act upon it. في صحف مكرمة, they are in suhuf, in honorable pages. مرفوعة مطهرة, they are exalted and purified. And Allah is speaking about the book that is like, that we carry, the mushaf, that we love so much and we honor it and we protect it. That's what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is speaking about. بأيدي سفرة, in the hands of ambassadors. Who are these ambassadors? Kiram barara, noble and devoted. There's an opinion that they are the people who have the Quran, the people who benefit, like recite the Quran, who memorize the Quran, or the angels themselves. Okay, so both are valid opinions that they are the ambassadors of the Quran. How are they the ambassadors of the Quran? How do we know they are an ambassador to the Quran? They embody the best character. Aisha radiallahu anha, she was asked, what was the character, what was the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam like? And she said that his manners were the Quran. He acted the Quran. He walked the Quran. He lived the Quran to the level where you could say that he was a walking Quran. And this is like an ambassador of the Quran. When somebody memorizes the Quran, or where somebody is a Muslim and says, I believe in the Quran, then our role is to deliver the message of the Quran. How are we doing that? How truthful are we about what's in the Quran and how we live it, and how do others see it in us? SubhanAllah, there was when the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, how did Islam get to Malaysia, Indonesia, like what I learned is that it got there by the businessmen, merchants who used to go there, and they used to deal with people in such good manners that people accepted Islam because of it, you know. Okay, we already talked about that. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says the Quran is a reminder. فَذَكِّرْ إِنَّ الذِّكْرَى تَنْفَعُ الْمُؤْمِنِينَ. So when learning the deen, our goal is not to learn something new. Our goal is to get reminders of what we already know and asking ourselves, am I acting upon it? So many times we let go of we decide not to go to a specific course, and we say, I already know what's in it. The goal is not the goal is not to always increase yourself in knowledge of what you don't know. It's to revisit what you already know and ask yourself, am I implementing this? Am I living with this? Am I practicing this? Right? The Quran is physically and spiritually pure. So can we touch it or read it if we are safe in a state of impurity? Now, this is where there's difference of opinion, and I'd like to not get into the fiqh, but basically, can you read the Quran if you are on your menses? And can you read the Quran if you are in a state of janaba? If you are in a state of janaba, because it's temporary, janaba is like when you've had sexual relations with your spouse. If you're in a state of janaba, this is temporary, and our scholars say that you go take a shower before you recite Quran, right? But if you are in a state where you are impure because of your menses or because you had a baby and you are in your nifas, then can you recite the Quran? Wallahu ta'ala a'lam, the opinion that I personally follow is the opinion that says yes, you can recite the Quran, because Shaykh al-Islam Ibn Taymiyyah, there is no actual text of the Prophet ﷺ that says no, you cannot. There isn't a clear-cut text that says a woman who's in her menses cannot touch or recite the Quran. So it's all an understanding of the scholars and how they understand certain incidents and certain verses like they are pure. Shaykh al-Islam Ibn Taymiyyah, he said that to expect a believing woman to not recite the Quran for 7 days to 15 days, how many days it takes for her menses, is not logical, right? It is not befitting, and it's not logical to expect a Muslim to go that long without reciting the Book of Allah, right? So this is, subhanAllah, a matter that the scholars differ in. Some of the other opinions also mention, can you hold the mushaf? What I personally do from what I have learned is, if you have a mushaf that has translation, whether mine is Arabic, it says not translation, whether it has English translation or tafseer, on the sides, on the bottom, then it is okay to hold a mushaf like that. It is also okay to hold it on your phone, if you have the phone app. I personally stay away from the one that is complete Quran. That is just like Quran only, even though and also I've heard a different opinion about that as well. Okay, I'm going to take a quick break. Okay. Okay, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Allah is reminding us of the creation of the human being, right? قُتِلَ الْإِنسَانُ مَا أَكْفَرَهُ. Perish man, how thankless is he? How ungrateful is this person? Why is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala saying that? Because this person is refusing to accept the reminder of Allah. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying, what is going on with them? Why don't they see this? Don't they see how Allah, their creation as a human, the cycle of their creation? Are they not being conscious to it? قُتِلَ الْإِنسَانُ مَا أَكْفَرَهُ. How ungrateful is man? Woe to them, cursed are they. مِنْ أَيِّ شَيْءٍ خَلَقَهُ. From what have they created him? مِنْ نُطْفَةٍ خَلَقَهُ فَقَدَّرَهُ. He was nothing but a dot, and he created him. فَقَدَّرَهُ. He allowed him to be able to do things. ثُمَّ السَّبِيلَ يَسَّرَهُ. Then he eased the way for him. ثُمَّ أَمَاتَهُ فَأَقْبَرَهُ. Then he caused him to die, and he put him in a grave. ثُمَّ إِذَا شَاءَ أَنشَرَهُ. Then when Allah wills, he will tell the grave to open up and bring him back up, resurrect him. كلا لما يقضي ما أمره, but no, he did not fulfill what he was commanded to do, right? After all of this, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is doing, like, this is a cycle of life. This is the cycle of the reality of the human being. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying, is this person so ungrateful that they don't even realize that this is what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is doing all of this for them, and that they will be held accountable. They're so busy with what they're in right now that they're not paying attention to what is coming later. What is that? Oh. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gets into our food supply. One of the simple things Allah does for us, right? The simplest things that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does for us, that we take for granted. Today, none of us cares enough. I don't want to say that. That's a judgment. Many people don't care enough about nature and climate change because we're disconnected from this natural food supply. We're disconnected from it. We just go to Cup Food, we go to Aldi, we find our bread, we find our bananas, we find our fruits, we find our vegetables, we find everything that we need, and we are good to go, right? Now, the thing is, subhanAllah, this is the cycle of our food supply, that if we know about nature, we would be appreciative to it. Now, I have a friend who is a farmer, holistic, holistic coach. She's a homesteader. I asked her to do an explanation of these verses for us, okay? I asked her to do an explanation of these verses for us. One day I was sitting with my mentor who isn't Muslim, who told me about how he taught his children about the cycle of food and how to be grateful to food. Yeah, he taught his children, this is how they start their gratitude at the table. He said they would sit and they would say thank you to the farmer who took the seed, who planted the seed. Thank you to the earth, to the soil. Thank you to the rain. And I was just sitting there going like, my mentor is sitting here telling me about what Allah talked about in the Quran, in Surat Abasa specifically. He was living it. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala guide his heart to Islam, Ya Rabbil Alameen. But basically, I'll go ahead and turn on this video. And what happened to the video? This is so interesting. I had it open, that's why I'm confused. Okay, I'm gonna skip the introduction. It's great. I love my friend. She's basically holistic health coach.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم فلينظر الإنسان إلى طعامه أنا صببنا الماء صبا ثم شققنا الأرض شقا فأنبتنا فيها حبا وعنبا وقضبا وزيتونا ونخلا وحدائق غلبا وفاكهة وأبا متاعا لكم ولأنعامكم. Natural systems which you put.
I'm going to skip to the point where she gets into the verses, but the video is available to you in your notes, and you can always go back to it, okay? I feel bad I'm doing that, but it will save us a little bit of time since we're limited here.
In place because we take it for granted, subhanAllah. Alhamdulillah, it is raining. Alhamdulillah. Before we started gardening, before I started growing my own food, I used to really get annoyed with rain because, especially where you're wearing an abaya, getting it wet, it ends up being really heavy. It makes your shoes wet. It can thwart outside plans. And we can be like, oh gosh, I hate the rain. was, subhanAllah, it wasn't until we started growing our own food that we really started to appreciate the rain. So in my journey of growing food, I have this ayah of Surah Abasa used to play in my head, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He says, أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم فلينظر الإنسان إلى طعامه أنا صببنا الماء صبا. And when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, that He sends down the rain from the sky, pouring from above, pouring from the sky, I didn't understand why that was such a miracle until I had to water my own garden. So, just thinking about, for example, we have about a quarter of an acre of just garden, and so having to stand up and water that with tap water from the hose that's connected to our water supply in the house was just really tiring. It would take a good 30 minutes to an hour to do that manually by hand. The fact that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is sending this beautiful rain from the sky is just so convenient. Everything's getting watered evenly. I'm not like overwatering one part and then underwatering another part. And aside from just personal convenience, the fact that that water is of superior quality, there's nothing that comes close to rainwater. Rainwater is basically distilled, purified water that's been aerated with oxygen because it's been the clouds. SubhanAllah, the place where the water evaporated from, rivers and lakes and streams and the ocean, and even the soils imagine just the rainforest. It's not just completely pure water. There's even some nutrition in that water. There are trace minerals that were light enough to float up with the molecules of water. There's, for example, if there are forest fires or there were volcanoes, the ash would get into the clouds, and that anybody who gardens knows that ash and charcoal and little wood particulates are just basically, they're fertilizer for the ground. So subhanAllah, rain is not just giving water to the plant, it's also giving nutrients and nourishment. And I've noticed that no matter how much I water, the next day my plants, they might be doing a little bit better, but once it rains, there's like a nur to the plant. Wallahi, there's like a kind of green, glowing quality to the plants that happens after they receive a rain. And everything just grows exponentially. You could just see that, like, it's almost as though the garden just went, oh, alhamdulillah, that was a good drink. There's barakah in the rain, subhanAllah. Another really important function of rain is that it fills our lakes and our streams, and it keeps the water fresh and cycling, because if water stands in the same place for a very long time, it ends up becoming stagnant, and it becomes kind of useless. It's not potable. You can't drink it. If it's stagnant because of evaporation, you can't do anything with it. You can't water plants with it. You can't drink it. All you can do is just float in it. So the function of rain is not only watering the ground, but also making other water sources available. And alhamdulillah, in the back of my, behind my land, behind my yard, we have a stream, subhanAllah, that is always full of water, but after rain, it gets a little bit more full and more full of life. And we just had a rain a few days ago, and this is what our little stream is like. As you can see, it like winds around there. I have used this water here, which is also flowing and fills up from the rain and keeps the rainwater available. I've used it on my plants, and alhamdulillah, it's been really beneficial for us. So these are the wonderful benefits of rain. Not only is it falling from the sky, but it's also, nourishing the plants. It's making our job really convenient. We don't really have to irrigate. It's just like a gift of both labor and, nutritional density. And of course, the water itself is just a wonderful blessing from the sky. And on top of that, it fills our reservoirs. It fills our streams, it fills our lakes, and it keeps water fresh on earth. So it's a huge blessing. So subhanAllah, after Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about, telling human beings to look at their own food
and that He sends down the rain, pouring down, like pouring upon pourings. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Bismillahir-Rahmanir-Rahim, ثُمَّ شَقَقْنَا الْأَرْضَ شَقًّا. And shaq in Arabic, actually, it means like to cleave or to cleft open, to like tear or break. And subhanAllah, like when we're planting seeds, which I've done a few weeks ago, I actually planted, you can see my furrows here, you see some stuff growing, these other furrows over here. When the seeds have germinated and the little sprouts come up, it's just subhanAllah, it's so amazing how this little delicate seed will push against and cleave open the earth. And some seeds are actually easier to see than others. So for example, like green beans and bigger seed, I planted some kale and some root veg. And right now they're very small seeds and they're small seedlings. So it might be a little bit more difficult to see, but you can actually see how this little plant has cut open the ground in order to come up, subhanAllah. So I hope that inshallah you'll be able to see this. There's like this little plant right here. If you can see this one, it has pushed open all the dirt around it and it has heaved itself up. And you can see the other ones that have done the same, just all of them heaving. You see these little guys, subhanAllah, resilient, coming through the wood chips. You could probably, if we're lucky, we'll probably even see one. You see this one, it's pushed itself up past this leaf, and it's split open the ground, just like Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, as you can see here. Just absolutely amazing. And these guys are not super strong, but they are very resilient. And you can see it here. SubhanAllah, they just push themselves up. In spite of being buried down, they push themselves up and cleave open the earth like Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has told us, أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم فلينظر الإنسان إلى طعامه إنا صببنا الماء صبا ثم شققنا الأرض شقا فأنبتنا فيها حبا. And so now Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala starts listing off everything that is the beneficiary of the rain and the cleaving of the soil and is considered our food. So ta'am in Arabic is in reference to human food versus akal, which is just anything that which is eaten. And that could include like for animals and human beings, but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala here is referring to ta'am, which is what feeds human beings. Alhamdulillah, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has honored us as human beings. So فَأَنبَتْنَا فِيهَا حَبَّا. So in Arabic, hab is a seed, but in particular a grain. And grain is, as you know, basically the foundation of civilization. Grain is what bread is made of. Grain could include anything that you would, that is so substantial that it alone in itself is basically a complete food. So this would be including wheat, barley, corn, and so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about the most important thing first. So subhanAllah, grains are a superfood, really, because a grain is the seed of a plant, and in that of a grass, right? So for example, wheat or corn, these are grasses, and the seeds of that grass has in it the germ, the wheat, it has protein at some level, it has carbohydrates, it has B vitamins, it has all these things, and after processing them, we can use them to make bread, and that will fill us and sustain us. It's a lot more time and cost effective in terms of our energy to try to grow grain than to just try to grow collards or some kind of greens or something, because they're so calorically dense and nutrient dense foods, because they are the seed. They have all that genetic material and all of that nutrition from the grass, subhanAllah. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions it first Another amazing thing is that because it's a seed, not only can we eat it, but in and of itself, the seed itself reproduces itself. So one grain would produce grass, which would produce countless number of seeds. So it's exponentially beneficial. So there's just blessing upon blessing upon blessing that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about. فَأَنبَتْنَا فِيهَا حَبًّا. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَعِنَبًا وَقَدْبًا. So inab, of course, is grapes. My father, who is an imam, he told me that in some references in Arabic that it also means just anything that grows on a vine perennially. So a perennial plant is something that comes back year after year. An annual plant is something you have to plant every year. And inab, grapes, we have grapes up on our trellis. Grapes can live a very long time. You plant them once, and all you have to do is just train them up on their trellis, and they'll come back year after year after year. Every winter, their their roots establish deeper and deeper into the soil, bringing up nutrients from way down and bringing it up into the fruit, which is why grapes are so nutritious, because they're able to get to nutrients that no other plant has the time or the strength to get to, because they live for so long and they can put their roots way down into the soil. They're like a healing, subhanAllah. They're really minerally dense. That's why they're so nutritious and so delicious. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَعِنَبًا وَقَدْبًا. So qadba is just like any foliage, any vegetation. So it refers to root vegetables that that the animal can eat the top part. So when, as you can see, my chickens are running around everywhere here, and they're going to be eating anything that they see, and from the top. But then the bottom, the roots, are reserved for me as the farmer, right? Because these guys like to pillage everything that we plant. Qad is just in general anything that you plant. So وَعِنَبًا وَقَدْبًا. And the cool thing about qad is that it's usually annual. So things that you plant every year are they're like your fruits, like cucumbers. They don't last. The plant lifespan is entirely in 1 year. It doesn't last year after year after year, but they do produce a lot of seeds, and they're fresh, and they're seasonal produce. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَعِنَبًا وَقَدْبًا وَزَيْتُونًا وَنَخْلًا. And then, so if you notice, we've gone from grasses to vines, like from grapes, to annual plants, and now we're at trees, zaytun. Zaytun is, of course, olives, and subhanAllah, there's so much benefits people get from olives and olive trees. I have a couple olive trees right here, and the amazing thing about olive trees is that every single part of them is, beneficial. I have one I will show you right here. The leaves, my dad makes tea out of it. It has a property almost like ibuprofen or aspirin. Right here, as you can see them. You can eat these. They're very bitter, but they're very good for you. You can make olive oil out of the fruit. You can pickle it, and you can preserve it for a very long time. And not only do you consume the olive oil, you can also use the oil in lamps, and that's what people used to do before they had kerosene and gasoline and all of that. They would use olive oil to light their lamps. So you get light, you get nutrition, you get protection and medicine. You get ibuprofen out of this, subhanAllah, zaytun. The next thing that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about is nakhla is date palm. So of course we know the benefits of the date palm because it's such a blessed fruit. We eat it all the time. But date palms take a really long time to grow. I don't know if people are familiar with the requirements, like the growth requirements of date palms. We've tried to plant a few date palms, but they're very long-lived, and they're towering trees. They're huge, and they send their roots really deep down. They require a very specific climate, but once they produce for you, their food stores for a very long time. This is actually kind of a theme in all of these foods, is their ability to store. You can store the grain, you can store, well, people used to, do wine, but that's been outlawed, of course, in our in our Sharia. But it used to be a source of nutrition and a potable drink because of it had been fermented. Then we have zaytun, which is preserved olives and the oil that comes from it. And then we have nakhla, which is, date palm. It can produce dates, and dates are a dried food, and they can be kept for a very long time. After Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is talking about all of these foods, وَعِنَبًا وَقَدْبًا وَزَيْتُونًا وَنَخْلًا, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَحَدَائِقَ غُلْبًا. So حَدَائِقَ غُلْبًا is covered gardens, and unfortunately it's the winter, well, it's, late winter, early spring isn't here yet, but in the springtime, or when your garden is up and running, there's just swaths of greenery, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, is talking about the bounty of the garden, and for me as a gardener, it's the visual appeal. Alhamdulillah, this year we had gorgeous growth. We've been investing in our garden for about 3 years now, and it really paid off this year. It was just huge swaths of green. It was beautiful. It was so soothing to the eye. I would just come out and sit in the garden because it was pretty. And there was like a relaxation, a stress relief, and like a practical stress relief, because it's not only beautiful, but it's feeding me. It's feeding my chickens. As you can see here, like my chickens like the garden. They're looking at it because they're over here. There's a fence. They love to get in there and eat. And subhanAllah, after that, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when he mentions the gardens that are so lush and there's like trees over them, it feels it just feels cozy and secluded, and there's a kind of relaxation that comes from them, and that's a blessing that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives us. Then he says, and the fruits, delicious fruits. I know Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala already mentioned the date palm and the grapes and the pomegranates, but fawakih, or in this ayah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is referring to like delicious fruits. It exempts the prior fruits already mentioned. And wa'abba, abba is the grass. So, but it refers usually to the pasture, like pasture grasses that you use for your animals, as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, مَتَاعًا لَكُمْ وَلِأَنْعَامِكُمْ, a pleasure for you and for your animals. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying, I've given all of this for you and your animals. It's an enjoyment for you and your animals. And ultimately, the animals also feed us. Like, alhamdulillah, we have these chickens. They're such a pleasure. I have a chicken that has escaped, if you can see her. She's enjoying herself, right? There's an enjoyment in looking at the beauty of the garden, and that there's so much bounty. Your animals are eating, they're content, and you're just watching them, and you're eating of the fruits and you're enjoying it and you're sharing with your animals. There's just like this wonderful sense of satisfaction. To be honest, like, it wasn't until I started gardening that I really understood the appeal of Jannah. I know that sounds a little bit crazy, but as a child I used to wonder, oh great, garden is like, Jannah is a garden, what am I going to do? Like, why don't I'd rather have like a PlayStation or something, because you're a kid. But subhanAllah, like the ease and satisfaction and almost like feeling of home that a garden provides, especially one that's alive with animals, there's nothing compared to it. It's just having a garden and enjoying the beauty of the garden has made me wonder and actually yearn for Jannah even more, because if this is how awesome just a little dunya garden can be, what about Jannah, where you can have anything and you don't have to deal with like, stinging insects and animals and pests and stuff, where everything is at peace and everything is kind of united in harmony? What about that kind of a garden? It would just be amazing and fantastic. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give that to all of us and bless us all to have beautiful gardens and gardens and gardens in Jannah, inshallah. Inshallah, I pray that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala blesses all of us to become more connected with nature, so that inshallah we might glean a better understanding of how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is talking to us in the Quran. I've been reflecting over the past few days as I was making this video about how necessary food is, and how if we kind of follow the crumb trail of looking at our food as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala calls us to do, it is a way for us to become more grounded in the reality of our lives. Food is our umbilical cord to the earth. And as such, food reconnects us with the natural laws and natural systems, which are a reflection of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's amazing attributes and his character as our Rabb. And if we could just take a moment to actively engage or just actively observe his systems and reflect and kind of allow ourselves to feel that awe in connection with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we'll be able to find a conviction and an experience that no lecture could give, no body could convey, except through the experience of being in nature, connecting with our food for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I pray that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will forgive me for anything that I've said that's incorrect, and I pray that inshallah you've benefited, even just a little bit, maybe from something that some of my experiences that I've discussed with you. And inshallah, I hope that you will choose to maybe grow a little bit of your food and get to know it and look at it and get connected, inshallah. Jazakumullahu khairan for your time. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
And if you guys want to follow Jalila, she is on Facebook, where she does videos and has programs and things like that. So inshallah, check her out. But subhanAllah, some of the things that really stand out to me from that video is the quality of the rain and how it impact, how like she spent time with every single verse in this section. But the type of rain, the quality of the rain that she gets, and then that ayah, ثُمَّ شَقَقْنَا الْأَرْضَ شَقًّا فَأَنبَتْنَا فِيهَا حَبًّا. SubhanAllah, like the resilience of plants. Like, what about the resilience of human beings? What about the resilience of our own resilience? What is it that we are capable of doing? What barriers are we able to break? Then the end of the surah, which will not take a long time here, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وُجُوهٌ يَوْمَئِذٍ مُسْفِرَةٌ. Faces on that day will be radiant, will glow, will look happy, will look ضَاحِكَةٌ مُسْتَبْشِرَةٌ, laughing and rejoicing. Yay! May Allah make us of those faces, Ya Rab. وَوُجُوهٌ يَوْمَئِذٍ عَلَيْهَا غَبَرَةٌ. And faces on that day will have misery. Ghabara is also dusty, tired. Tarhaquha qatara, overwhelmed by remorse. Qatara means remorse, regret. Tarhaquha means it's tired, it's overwhelmed, it's exhausted because of how remorseful it is. Ulaika. Oh, actually, I missed. فَإِذَا جَاءَتِ الصَّاخَّةُ. And when the deafening noise comes to pass. فَإِذَا جَاءَتِ الصَّاخَّةُ, that means the day of judgment. يَوْمَ يَفِرُّ الْمَرْءُ مِنْ أَخِيهِ. On the day when the person will run away from his brother, run away from his mother and his father, run away from his wife and his companion and his children. لِكُلِّ امْرِئٍ مِّنْهُمْ يَوْمَئِذٍ شَأْنٌ يُغْنِيهِ. On that day, each one of them has something that busies them, that keeps them occupied. وجوه يومئذ مسفرة, we already talked about that. أولئك هم الكفرة الفجرة. Those are the faithless and vicious, the worst of the people, the worst of the creation. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala not make us among them, and may Allah make us among those who are bright, happy, their faces glow. And subhanAllah, it's interesting that Allah speaks about faces, because our face is how we could tell. Like when you look at a person, their face tells you so much about their situation, you know. I am reminded, you know how Jalila just said right now, food is our umbilical cord to the earth. Food is our umbilical cord to the earth. So if we are consuming good stuff, it shows on our faces. It shows on our energy. It shows on the excitement and the energy that we bring about to this dunya, you know? So may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make us of those who are happy and not exhausted and remorseful on the Day of Judgment. Ya Rabbil Alameen. All right, سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك. Okay, thank you. The Dirty Life on Farming, Food, and Love by Kristen Kimball. Okay, I'm gonna look it up at Barnes and Noble.